Some sweaters look like pure magic, intricate textures and bold patterns that seem almost impossible to knit. You've probably seen them on Instagram or Pinterest, the ones with lace diamonds, zigzags and cables that make you stop scrolling and think, how do people even knit that? They look so advanced that it seems you would need years of experience just to try, right? And then you are wondering, where do I even start to knit such sweater? Well, right here. Every artist starts with a blank canvas. With the Drop and Dream sweater, we kept it simple. Now it's time to add texture and depth. So let's start with the artist sweater, your first step in the textured knitting. In this tutorial, I will guide you through the process step by step, showing you what's next after basic patterns and how to knit a sweater that looks impressive but isn't complicated to make. You will only need to add a couple of new techniques like make one left and make one right with purl stitches, and they will open the door to a whole new level of knitting. This stitch pattern has a 12-row repeat, 2 purl rows, 2 rows of seed stitch, knit 1, purl 1, and 8 rows of stockinette, where you knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side. You begin the textured pattern at the neck and smoothly work your way down. First, you knit the back section, increasing in every row. Then you pick up stitches from the shoulders to shape the neckline before joining the front and back to continue knitting in the round. Sleeves are picked up and worked in the round with gradual decreases along the way. Finally, you pick up stitches for the neckline and work a 1x1 rib, choosing between a single layer or folded neckband. Every row is written out in the pattern, but I also made charts so you can follow along with confidence. You can use them as row counters or progress trackers, and if you have never used charts before, this is a great chance to practice. Or you can ignore them. If you like this design and want me to create more patterns that help you move to the next level, please let me know with a thumbs up. And if you are ready, download the pattern on Etsy or Ravelry, because this tutorial is a visual guide and you will need the pattern for size-specific instructions. I know sometimes it's easier to see it once than read it 5 times, isn't it? You will find all links and additional materials in the description box, so feel free to check them before we start. As always, here is a little sneak peek at what's coming next. An elegant summer sole top, the next addition to essential knits for beginner knitters. If you don't want to miss it, make sure to subscribe to my channel Knit with Julia Piro, so you will be ready to cast on as soon as the tutorial is out. Also, I would love to hear what tutorials you want me to create this year. Let me know in the comments, and if you see an idea you like, give it a thumbs up. I will go through them and pick the most requested ones for future tutorials. Okay, let's keep going with the artist sweater, and remember, I named this to celebrate this milestone, because you are already creating like an artist. For this tutorial, I am using Isaiah Aran Tweed yarn in sand color, and I love its rustic charm. It is not soft or fluffy, but that's exactly what makes it perfect for the artist sweater. This yarn brings out the creative, artistic spirit of the design. It's raw, expressive and full of character. You have to experience it for yourself. I will leave a link in the description so you can explore the colors. And don't miss the confetti color. It seems to be a favorite among knitters, and honestly, it's stunning. One important thing to note: even though this is an Aran weight yarn, I got the gauge of 16 stitches on 4.5 millimeters. This is US 7 needles, much smaller than the typical 5 or 5.5 millimeters. This is US 8 or 9 for Aran yarns. It surprised me, but it worked beautifully. If you prefer something softer and a bit more predictable, I can't recommend anything better than Drops Nepal, my all-time favorite yarn. I knit my first sample with it in white, and it's soft and not too itchy thanks to the alpaca blend. This yarn is an ideal choice for adventurous beginners because it doesn't throw any surprises along the way. So choose the yarn that inspires your inner artist. Don't hold back, pick something that excites you, and let's start knitting. Alright, let's talk about swatching. I know it's not the most exciting part of knitting, and usually I wouldn't insist on it, but this time it's different. This textured stitch pattern is quite compressed, and the stitches only relax after wet blocking or steam ironing. Trust me, swatching now will save you from surprises later. We need to make sure you are getting the right gauge with your chosen yarn, and the only way to know for sure is to knit a swatch and wash it. Don't worry, it won't take long, and it will give you the confidence that your sweater will fit perfectly. If you are someone who never swatches, please, let's do it together. I will knit mine alongside you so it won't feel boring or like you are on your own. Start with your smaller sized needles and cast on 26 stitches. For the first 4 rows, work a rib by alternating knit one, purl one all the way across. Next, switch to your larger needles and we will work 3 repeats of textured stitch pattern. Row 1 on the right side, purl stitches. Row 2 on the wrong side, knit all stitches. Row 3, knit 1, purl 1 across. Row 4, purl 1, knit 1 across. Row 5, knit all stitches. Row 6, purl stitches. Rows 7 to 12. Work these 6 rows in stockinette stitch. Knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side. Once you've finished this 12-row repeat, do it 2 more times. That's it, you are done with the swatch. Go ahead and cast off your stitches. Do you see how tight the fabric looks right now? This is why we wash the swatch, to see what it's really going to look like. Let's soak it in lukewarm water with a little detergent for about 20 minutes. After that, rinse it, gently squeeze out the excess water, no wringing, and lay it flat on a towel to dry. Now that the swatch is completely dry, take a look. See the difference? The fabric is softer and it has a whole new drape. This is why swatching is so important. Next, take a ruler and measure the gauge. Place the ruler on the swatch and count how many stitches you have over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. You should have 16 stitches. If you have more than 16 stitches, switch to a larger needle size. If you have fewer than 16 stitches, go down a smaller needle size. And yes, you might need to knit another swatch to get it just right. I had to knit 3 swatches with Isaiah Aaron tweed before I got the right gauge. Don't worry about wasting yarn, you can reuse it. Simply unravel the blocked swatch, wrap the yarn around a book, and secure it with a couple of ties. Soak it again or steam it if you have a steam iron. Once it's dry, the yarn will be good as new and ready to knit with again. Thank you for taking the time to swatch. It truly makes a difference. Alright, let's finally get started and cast on. We are starting with the back section and shaping it outward from the neckline by working increases in every row. If you are new to these increases, no worries, I'll guide you through each one as we go. First, cast on the number of stitches for your size using the larger needles with an 80 cm 31 inches cable. I'm knitting size small and will use the long tail cast on method, but you are welcome to use whichever method feels comfortable. Once the stitches are on your needles, we will begin with row 0 on the wrong side and purl all stitches. Great job! That's our setup row complete. Now, we will move on to the textured stitch pattern, a simple 12-row repeat that we will follow throughout the sweater, from the neck down to the hem. This pattern is easy to memorize. The first 2 rows are purl rows. The next 2 rows alternate knit and purl stitches, creating a beautiful texture with a seed stitch. The final 8 rows are worked in a stockinette stitch. Now, let's take a look at the chart together. Here you can see the increases on the left side of the upper back. And here are the increases on the right side. The chart also shows the sequence of 2 purl rows, 2 seed stitch rows and 8 stockinette stitch rows that create the structure and texture of the fabric. We will start with row 1 and keep referring back to the chart as we go along. Step 1. For the first 12 rows, all sizes follow the same steps. Let's break it down and focus on the textured stitch pattern. It's easier than it looks, I promise, and we will get familiar with the different types of increases as we go. Row 1 on the right side. Start by knitting 2 stitches. Then place a marker. This marker sets the seam on the back, creating a nice detail while also reminding us where to make an increase. Now for our first increase, the purl left increase. Because this row is all purl stitches, the increase will match them for consistency. To work the make 1 purl left, use your left needle to pick up the bar between the stitches from the front to back. If it helps, you can use your right needle to lift the bar. Then purl into the back loop of this bar. This creates a left-leaning increase. These increases might seem a bit tricky, but they're actually basic techniques. We will tackle them now, so the next time you will see them in the pattern, you will think, make 1 purl left. I know you well. Next, purl across the row until you reach the last 2 stitches. Now for the second increase, the purl right increase. Pick up the bar between stitches from the back to front with your left needle and purl it into the front loop. This increase leans to the right to balance the shaping. Place another marker to separate the seam stitches and knit the final 2 stitches. That's it, we've added 2 stitches, 1 on each side. Let's take a closer look at the chart to understand how it all comes together. Row 1 begins on the right hand side with 2 knit stitches, followed by the purl left increase, then purl stitches across. On the opposite side you will see purl stitches, the purl right increase and 2 knit stitches at the end. If it feels tricky now, don't worry, the steps will become easier as you practice and refer back to the chart. For now, add another removable stitch markers on each side to mark where the shoulders will start. Row 2 on the wrong side. Purl the first 2 stitches. Slip the marker and then make a right-leaning knit increase, make 1 R, by lifting the bar between stitches from the back to front with your left needle and knit into it. Continue knitting across the row until you reach the last 2 stitches. Next, work a left-leaning knit increase, make 1 L, by lifting the bar from the front to back with your left needle and knitting it through the back loop. Slip the marker and purl the last 2 stitches. We've added 2 more stitches, 1 on each side. Let's check this on the tracking chart. The white square on the chart shows a knit stitch on the right side and a purl stitch on the wrong side. For row 2, we began with 2 purl stitches, then we worked the make 1 right, knitted across, added the make 1 left and finished with 2 purl stitches. Turn your work to the right side and here are our 2 purl rows. In row 3 and 4 we will work the seed stitch pattern, a simple alternation of 1 knit stitch and 1 purl stitch. For row 3 on the right side, start by knitting the first 2 stitches to create the seam. Then slip the marker and make a left-leaning increase with M1L. Using your left needle, pick up the strand between the last stitch and the next one from the front to back and knit it through the back loop. Now alternate purl 1, knit 1 across the row until you reach the last 2 stitches. At the end, make a purl right increase, M1PR. Use your left needle to pick up the strand between the last stitch and the next one from the back to front. Then purl this loop through the front. Slip the marker and knit the final 2 stitches. That's it for row 3, 2 new stitches added. Now turn your work to the wrong side and get ready for row 4. For row 4, on the wrong side, begin by purling the first 2 stitches. Then slip the marker. Now let's make a right-leaning increase, M1R. Lift the strand between the stitches from the back to front with your left needle and knit into it. Next, alternate purl 1, knit 1 across the row until you get to the last 2 stitches. For the seed stitch pattern, make sure the purl stitches sit under the knit stitches and the knit stitches sit under the purl ones. When you get to the last 2 stitches and our last stitch was a knit stitch, we make a purl left increase, M1PL. Pick up the strand between the stitches from the front to back with your left needle, then purl through the back loop. This part might feel a little challenging, but we will work through it step by step. Watching your sweater take shape makes it all worthwhile. Then slip your marker and purl 2 stitches. We've added 2 more stitches. If we look at the chart, we will see the purl edge stitches, the increases on both sides, and the alternating knit and purl stitches in the middle, creating that beautiful texture. For the next 8 rows, we will move into stockinette stitch while continuing with the edge increases. For row 5, start by knitting the first 2 stitches. Then slip the marker. Next, work a left leaning increase, M1L. And knit across the row until you reach the last 2 stitches or the next marker. Here, make a right leaning increase, M1R. Slip the marker and knit the final 2 stitches. That's row 5 done. Now let's turn our work to the wrong side for row 6. For this row, start by purling the first 2 stitches. And slipping the marker. Then work a purl right increase by picking up the strand between stitches from the back to front and purling this lifted loop through the front. Purl across to the next marker. And make a purl left increase by lifting the strand from the front to back and purling through the back loop. Slip the marker and finish by purling the last 2 stitches. That's row 6 done. Repeat rows 5 and 6 3 more times to complete 8 rows in stockinette stitch in total. With each row you will see the back section taking shape beautifully. Step 2. Once you've completed the first 12 rows, go ahead and repeat them again. This is a great chance to really get comfortable with the increases and enjoy the rhythm of textured stitch pattern. All sizes will have 24 rows completed, which includes 2 repeats of the textured pattern. Now take a look at the PDF pattern, how many additional rows are needed for your size. For size S, I will be repeating rows 1 to 6, that means 2 purl rows, 2 seed stitch rows and 2 stockinette stitch rows. Step 4. At this point, sizes up to XL will have finished the first part of the back and can go to the control point to check their progress. Larger sizes will need to repeat a few more rows to shape the back further. Simply follow the same 12-row repeat pattern until you've completed the required number of rows for your size. We've reached our first checkpoint, time to make sure everything is going as planned, with no surprises waiting ahead. First, count your stitches and compare them with the number listed for your size in the pattern. If your stitch count is correct, wonderful. If it is not quite right, don't worry. Missing a few increases isn't the end of the world. If you are off by 1 to 3 stitches, there is no need to unravel your work. When we start part 2, you can add those missing stitches in the first few rows. Try to identify which side needs the adjustment to keep everything balanced. Next, check your row count. This step is very important as our stitch pattern depends on it being accurate. Finally, measure the length of the upper back piece at the center. A small variation of 1-2 centimeters, about half an inch, is perfectly fine at this stage. We will take another more precise measurement when we reach control point number 2. Now, let's do a bit of preparation. Take 2 removable stitch markers and place one on the first stitch of your row and the other on the last stitch. These markers will help guide us when we pick up stitches for the shoulders later. Alright, we are starting back part 2 with step 5. We will be following the same 12-row textured stitch pattern, and this time there are no increases, just smooth knitting to grow the back piece. Each size begins where it left off. Depending on your size, you will pick up the pattern sequence from a specific point, but we all proceed with the same 12-row pattern. There is nothing to interrupt it, so there is little chance of confusion. For my size small, I will start with rows 7 to 12 from instructions B. This means working 6 rows in stockinette stitch, knit all stitches in row 7, purl all stitches in row 8, and so on. And in step 6, all sizes are back on the same stage, starting at the beginning of the 12-row stitch pattern. We will work all 12 rows again as described in instructions B. Step 7 brings us to the point where each size has completed these 12 rows, and now work additional X rows as specified for your size. For small, I will work rows 1 to 10 once more. Finally, in step 8, some sizes, including mine, will move on to the next control point. Other sizes will continue with the pattern by following instructions C. You will keep repeating what you've done. 2 purl rows, 2 seed stitch rows, and 8 stockinette stitch rows. The textured pattern flows seamlessly to the bottom edge of the sweater. Enjoy the process and let the rhythm of your knitting guide you. You've reached control point 2. This is a big milestone because it means your back section is officially complete. You should be so proud of yourself. Okay, here's what we will do next. Start by measuring your piece from the cast-on edge to the bottom and compare this measurement with the length specified in the pattern for your size. Now check your stitch count. If everything matches, you are right on track. Take a tapestry needle with a piece of thin scrap yarn in a contrasting color, or use a silicone cord to hold your stitches. Carefully slide the stitches of the needle one by one. And secure the ends of the yarn. Once your stitches are on hold, cut the working yarn, leaving a tail long enough to weave in later. We are ready to move on to the front pieces. Let's move on to the front, starting with the left shoulder. Step 1. Place your back piece right side up to keep everything aligned. Don't worry if the texture seems tight now. After the first wash, it will relax and the stitch pattern will look just like on the white sweater. Our next step is to pick up stitches for the left shoulder. We will pick up and knit stitches between these 2 edge stitches to create a neat chain effect. One stitch will land on the wrong side and the other will stay on the right, forming a nice decorative seam. We will pick up stitches starting at the back neck and move toward the outer edge. But even though we've placed markers, I like to double check for accuracy. The key is to pick up the last stitch at the final loop, so I count my stitches backward from that point. This way I know exactly where to start near the neck to finish perfectly at the loop. Now go ahead and pick up X stitches for your size. Step 2 and row 0 on the wrong side. Once you've picked up all your stitches, turn your work and purl across the row. Step 3. We will work the shoulders first section and follow the sequence from instructions D to set up the familiar 12-row repeat pattern. For row 1 on the right side, you will purl all the stitches across. Then, for row 2 on the wrong side, simply knit across. Now we move into the seed stitch section. On row 3, alternate knit and purl stitches to the end of the row. For row 4, reverse the order. Purl 1, knit 1 all the way across. After that, it's time for 8 rows of stockinette stitch. Just knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side. Keep going until all 8 rows are done. Step 4. Once you've completed the 12 rows of the textured stitch pattern, it's time for a few extra rows. If you are working sizes 2XS to 3XL, work 2 more rows. Just repeat rows 1 and 2. For sizes 4XL to 6XL, repeat rows 1 to 4 once more. Step 5. Next, we will shape the neckline. Each size follows its own specific instructions in Instructions E, but we will all keep working the 12-row pattern repeat. To create a nice curve for the neckline, we will add increases only on the right side, not in every row like we did for the back. The type of increase: make one left, make one right, make one purl left, or make one purl right, depends on the textured stitch pattern for that row. Let me walk you through the steps for my size small, and you can follow the same approach for your size. For sizes 2XS to 3XL, we will work rows 15 to 30. Rows 15-16. Look closely at your sweater and you will see that the next section follows the seed stitch pattern. Row 15 on the right side. Knit the first stitch. Place a marker to remind yourself to increase after it, and then make one purl left to maintain the seed stitch pattern. Pick up the strand between the two stitches and purl it through the back loop. Yes, it's tricky, I know. Continue alternating knit one, purl one to the last stitch. Then knit the final stitch to stay in pattern. Row 16 on the wrong side. Simply alternate knit one, purl one to the last stitch. Since the previous stitch is a purl, knit the last one to finish. Done. Rows 17 to 24. These rows are worked in stockinette stitch, which is where sizes 4XL to 6XL will begin following their specific instructions. On right side rows like 17, 19, 21, 23, knit the first stitch. Then make one left, since it's an all-knit row. Pick up the strand from the front to back and knit it through the back loop. It's a simple increase, isn't it? Continue knitting to the end. On wrong side rows like 18, 20, 22, 24, parallel stitches. After completing 8 rows in stockinette stitch, we have 2 purl rows. Purl on the right side and knit on the wrong side. Row 25 on the right side. Purl the first stitch. Then make one purl left, since this is an all-purl row. Insert your left needle from the front and purl through the back loop. Continue purling to the end. Row 26 on the wrong side. Knit all stitches. Keep following these increased rows according to your size. As you work, you will see the neckline curve take shape. It's such a satisfying moment. Take a moment to measure your left shoulder piece from the cast-on edge down and compare your measurements with the numbers in the pattern. Also, double-check that your stitch count matches the pattern for your size. If you are off by 1 or more stitches, you will need to unravel back to where the increase row began and start again. Don't worry, this is quick to fix. This time, keep track of your rows using the chart. Once everything looks good, place the stitches on a holder, thinner yarn or a silicone cord. And cut the yarn. That's it for the left shoulder. Next, we will move on to the right shoulder, which is worked in almost the same way, and then we will start bringing the pieces together. Now we will move on to the right shoulder. Put the back piece in front of you with the right side facing. This part follows a similar process as the left shoulder, but we will pick up stitches in the opposite direction and shape the neckline slightly differently. Let's take it step by step. Step 1. With a new yarn, start at the outer shoulder edge and pick up X stitches for your size, working toward the neckline. Pick up each stitch between two edge stitches to create a neat chain look along the edge, just as we did on the left shoulder. Step 2. Turn your work to the wrong side for row 0 and purl all stitches, heading back toward the outer edge. Step 3. Now we will begin the first part of the shoulder following the same 12-row pattern from the instructions F. Let me quickly walk you through the rows. Row 1 on the right side, purl all stitches. Row 2 on the wrong side, knit all stitches. Row 3, knit 1, purl 1 across. Row 4 on the wrong side, purl 1, knit 1 across. And rows 5 to 12, work in stockinette stitch. Work with 12 rows along with a few additional ones from step 4. It's the same process we followed for the left shoulder. Step 5. Now here's where we will do things a bit differently from the left shoulder. To shape the right side of the neckline, we will increase at the end of each right side row. Row 15 on the right side. Begin with knit 1, purl 1 and continue the pattern to the last 2 stitches. Knit 1, then make a right-leaning purl increase, M1PR. To do this, pick up the strand between the last 2 stitches from the back to front with your left needle. Then purl into the front of the loop. Finish the row with knit 1. Row 16 on the wrong side. Work the seed stitch pattern with knit 1, purl 1 across the row. And knit the last stitch. For the following right side rows, 17, 19, 21, 23, knit all stitches to the last one. Then make a right-leaning knit increase, M1R, by picking up the strand between the last 2 stitches from the back to front with your left needle. Then knit into the front of the loop. The last stitch is a knit stitch. For the wrong side rows 18, 20, 22, 24, simply purl all stitches. Take your time with these rows and we will meet again at row 25. Okay, we are at the row 25 on the right side. Purl across to the last stitch. Then make a right leaning purl increase. Pick up the strand between the last 2 stitches from the back to front with your left needle and purl into the front of the loop. Finish by purling the last stitch. For row 26 on the wrong side, knit all stitches. Now, complete the required number of rows for your size using instructions G. Once that's done, we will check everything together at the next control point. Once you've completed the specified rows, take a moment to count your stitches and ensure they match the numbers given in the pattern. This step is crucial to keep your project on track. Compare the left and right shoulders to confirm they are symmetrical, with a nicely defined neckline shaping between them. Keep your yarn attached because we will be joining the left and right pieces next. Now, with the left and right shoulders of the front section are complete, it's time to join them together. Step 1. Place your sweater in front of you with the right side facing up and knit across all the stitches of the right shoulder. Once you reach the end, it's time to cast on new stitches for the neckline with the simple backward loop cast on method. Here's how to do it. Twist the yarn around your thumb to create a loop. Slide this loop onto the right needle and pull it gently to snug it up. Repeat this process until you have cast on the number of stitches needed for your size. Keep the loops evenly tensioned, not too tight, not too loose. Once the neckline stitches are cast on, carefully transfer the stitches of the left shoulder onto your left needle. And knit across them. After joining the left and right pieces, check your stitch count and turn your work on the wrong side. Step 2. Purl across all the stitches of the left shoulder, the newly cast on neckline stitches and the right shoulder. If the cast-on stitches feel tight, no need to worry, this is only for this row. To make it easier, gently slide each stitch to the needle tip before inserting your needle. Be careful not to let any stitches slip off, but if they do, simply twist the loop like this and place it back on the needle. Step 3. Now that the front is joined, you will continue working the 12-row textured stitch pattern from where you left off. Keep going until you've completed the required number of rows for your size. This part is a lot of fun, no make one needs or pearls to worry about. I've outlined every step in the pattern so you can follow along row by row. There is also a handy chart at the end of the pattern that clearly shows the point where you should stop with the textured stitch pattern. I'll see you at the next control point. And here we are at our next control point with the front piece all finished. Now it's time to measure from the shoulder seam down and ensure the stitch pattern flows seamlessly. You might notice the fabric feels a bit snug. That's normal with this pattern. A gentle stretch will help you to reach the required measurements. While steam iron is an option to even out the stitches, I'd suggest holding off for now. If you ever need to adjust or change sizes, working with steam iron yarn can be a bit tricky since it tends to curl. Next, we will join the front and back pieces, knit a few rows, and then the moment of truth, trying it on. This is where your sweater really starts to come to life. Let's get to it. Alright friends, the moment we've been waiting for is here. We are finally knitting in the round. Step 1. Make sure you are on the right side at the beginning of the row for the front piece. Knit across all the stitches of the front. Then slip the back section stitches back onto the needle. And knit them as well. Once both sections are joined, place the beginning of the round marker in the center of the right underarm. Here is a tip. If you need to add a new skein of yarn, do it right at the underarm rather than in the middle of the fabric. This will make hiding those yarn ends much easier and keep your sweater looking flawless. The first round is done. Round 2. Knit all stitches. Step 2. Continue the 12 round textured stitch pattern from where you left off. All the details are described in instructions K, so from this point it's all about enjoying some smooth and relaxing knitting. This is your time to settle into the rhythm of the textured pattern. Complete the first 12 round repeat and then we will try on the sweater to see how it's coming along. Okay friends, it's time for a quick fitting. Slip half of your stitches onto scrap yarn or a spare thin needles so you can easily try on your sweater. At this point we will check the fit around the chest and underarms. It should feel comfortable. Don't hesitate to gently stretch the knitted fabric downward to get a better sense of the overall fit. Once you are happy with how it looks and feels, we will continue knitting the body, but keep in mind stop just before your desired length. The ribbing at the bottom will add a bit more, and after wet blocking, the textured stitch pattern will stretch and relax, making the sweater slightly longer. If you are noticing the fit isn't quite right, don't worry. First, check your gauge to ensure it matches your swatch. If needed, it's okay to start over with adjusted needles, yarn, or a different size. Remember, taking a small step back now can save you from bigger adjustments later, and it will help you create a sweater you truly love. Okay, let's dive back in and continue knitting the body. If you are enjoying this tutorial, please let me know with a thumbs up or share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear how it's going for you. So, we've knitted the body to the required length, but I know what you are thinking. It looks too short, right? Don't worry, I thought the same at first. But here's the reassuring part. I've got my wet block swatch right here, and it's proof that this fabric will stretch once it's soaked. You have your own swatch, so take a moment to compare and feel confident. When I line up my new sweater with the first white sample, you will see they are exactly the same length. With a gentle stretch, the body measures 28 centimeters or 11 inches. Let's try it on again and stretch it slightly to get a better sense of the fit and length. Remember, the ribbing we will add next will give it extra length, so there is no need to panic if it seems a little short right now. If you would like to adjust the length, now is the time. Want it longer? Add a few rounds. Prefer a shorter fit? Remove some. Just be sure to finish the body with either 2 purl rounds or 8 stockinette stitch rounds to keep the stitch pattern flowing seamlessly. If you are still unsure about the length, lightly steam iron the sweater to get a clear idea of its final size. Now, I will finish the body with 2 purl rounds, just purl stitches, and we are done. Next, grab your smaller needles with an 80 centimeters or 31 inches cable and let's move on to the ribbing. For a more fitted bottom, perhaps a larger bust and smaller waist, or if you are knitting for a man with broad chest and no belly, you can do a setup round to decrease, for example, every 6th stitch with knit 5, knit 2 together. Okay, for the ribbing, work a 1 by 1 rib with knit 1, purl 1 for 10 rounds. And cast off using any method you like. I prefer a basic cast off because it's easy to undo if adjustments are needed. As you cast off, stretch each stitch slightly to ensure the edge stays flexible and comfortable. The body is complete. Next up, we will tackle the sleeves and neckline. And here we are at the sleeve section. I've already knitted one sleeve to show you how it looks with the decreases and textured stitch pattern. And now we will work through the second sleeve together. First things first, take your larger size needles. You can use whatever you're most comfortable with. A short cable, a long one for magic loop, or a double pointed needles. I usually go for the magic loop method because it feels the most comfortable to me. Now, about picking up stitches. Every size has a specific number you will need to pick up, and a general rule is to pick up 2 stitches for every 3 rows along the armhole edge. If you are feeling unsure about this part, I've explained everything in detail in the Drop in Dream sweater tutorial. I will add the link here so you can check it out if needed and come back when you are ready. Once you are set, begin at the center of the underarm and pick up the number of stitches you need for your size. I use a needle with a long cable. First, I pick up all the stitches. And then create 2 loops on either side to make it easier to knit the first stitch. Knit all stitches. When I've knit all the stitches from the left needle, I slide the other half of the stitches onto it. Pull out the right hand needle and knit the new half of the stitches. That's the magic loop method. I will also include a link to a separate tutorial in the description for you. Don't forget to place a marker where you start. This will be your beginning of the round marker. With those stitches picked up, we are ready to dive in. Here is the plan. We will start with 8 rounds of simple knit stitches. After that, we move into the 12 round textured stitch pattern that you are already familiar with from the body. We will keep working this pattern until the sleeve reaches the length you want, plus a bit for the cuff. At the same time, we will work with some decreases to shape the sleeve. Depending on the round, you will use different decreasing techniques. On purl rounds, you will decrease with P2 together and slip slip purl. In seed stitch rounds, you will use purl 2 together and slip slip knit. And on knit rounds, it's as simple as knit 2 together and slip slip knit. Don't worry if it sounds a bit technical, it's actually quite straightforward, and I will show you exactly how to do each type of decrease. Now let's start knitting the first 8 rounds. Just knit all stitches. If you are working sizes XL to 6XL, you will need to include some decreases during rounds 6, 7 or 8, depending on your size. Here is how to work a decrease round if all stitches are knit stitches. You will start with a knit stitch, then knit the next 2 stitches together as one. That's your knit 2 together, K2 talk. Then knit across until you have 3 stitches left. Here you will work a slip slip knit, SSK. Slip 1 stitch, knit twice, then slip another stitch, knit twice. Next, insert your left needle tip into the fronts of these 2 slip stitches and knit them together through the back loop. Finally, knit the last stitch. And 2 stitches decreased. Now that step 2 is done, we are ready to follow the textured stitch pattern, which is a 12 round repeat. It starts with 2 purl rounds, moves into 2 rounds of seed stitch and finishes with 8 rounds of stockinette stitch. Let me show you how to make decreases depending on the round you are on. If you are decreasing in a purl round, here's what to do. Start with purl 1, then work P2 TOG, purl 2 stitches together by inserting your needle from right to left into the front of the next 2 stitches and purling them as one. Continue purling until you have 3 stitches left. Then work SSP. Slip 2 stitches knitwise one at a time, return them to the left needle and purl them together through the back loop, inserting the needle from the left to right. And finish with purl 1. If you are in a seed stitch round, here's how you decrease. Begin with knit 1, then purl 2 together. Work knit 1, purl 1 across the round until you have 3 stitches left. Then work slip, slip, knit. Slip one stitch, knit twice, then slip another stitch, knit twice, insert the left needle into the fronts of these stitches and knit them together through the back loop. And purl the last stitch. For a knit round, it's straightforward. Start with knit 1, then work K2TOG, knit 2 stitches together by inserting your needle through the front of both stitches and knitting them as one. Knit across until you have 3 stitches remaining. Then work SSK by slipping one stitch, knit twice, then another one, insert the left needle into the fronts of these stitches and knit them together through the back loop. Finish with knit 1. That's it, nothing too complicated once you get the hang of it. Now you are ready to work on your sleeve at your own pace. Remember, you can adjust the sleeve length to suit your preference, but keep in mind that it will stretch after wet blocking. If you are unsure, you can steam the sleeve lightly to see how it will look when finished. If you have finished all the decreases but still need more length, just keep following the stitch pattern without decreasing. Oops, I just noticed I missed 2 seed stitch rounds. No big deal, I will unravel and add them in. And if the sleeve feels a little too wide before the cuff, you can evenly decrease a few stitches using knit 2 together. When you are ready to finish, and with either 2 purl rounds or 8 stockinette stitch rounds, whichever look you prefer. Alright, let's keep knitting and I will meet you at the cuff. So, I had to reknit my first sleeve to get the textured stitch pattern perfectly aligned. I thought I was done after finishing with 2 purl rounds, but then I decided the sleeve needs just a bit more length. I added 8 rounds of stockinette stitch and I completely forgot to include 2 seed stitch rounds. I fixed it and now it's just right. Let's move on to the cuff together. Take your smaller needles and work 10 rounds of 1 by 1 rib. Alternate knit stitches and purl stitches until you've completed all 10 rounds. Then cast off loosely, stretching the loop a little as you go. If you find the cast off tight, you can try using a larger needle just for this step. Okay, that's it for the first sleeve. Now repeat the same steps for the second one. Great job! Well friends, we are so close now, just the neckband and a few final touches like weaving in the ends and washing and we are done. Get your smaller needles ready, either with a 40 cm cable or with a longer one for the magic loop method, whichever feels best for you. You know, I always go for the magic loop. Start by placing your sweater right side up in front of you with the back side facing you. We will begin at the center back neckline and move toward the shoulder seam. The number of stitches to pick up will vary depending on your size. If you need a little extra guidance, I've linked the Drop in Dream sweater tutorial in the description box, where I go into detail about picking up stitches for the neckband, just in case you need that extra bit of confidence. To pick up the stitches, start along the back neckline and pick up every stitch. Then work your way along the straight part of the neckline, picking up 2 stitches for every 3 rows. 1, 2, skip. 1, 2, skip. Finally, move along the curved areas, picking up about every stitch. When I reach the second shoulder seam, I take a moment to count how many stitches I've already picked up and figure out how many more I still need to pick up to reach the correct total. Then I count all the stitches along the second part of the back neckline where I need to pick up the rest. If there are more stitches than I need, I simply skip a few evenly as I go. This means I won't pick up every single stitch, I will leave out some to make sure I end up with the exact total number I need. Once all your stitches are on the needle, place a beginning of round marker. From here you have two options for finishing your neckband, a single layer neckband or a folded one. I will demonstrate both. Let's start with the single layer. Work in 1x1 rib, knit one, purl one for X rounds depending on your size. Once you are done, cast off stitches loosely, and that's it. Simple and elegant. If you are making the folded neckband, work the same X rounds of 1x1 rib and then purl the next round to create a neat fold line. And follow that with another X rounds of 1x1 rib. Now comes the fun part. Fold the neckband to the inside of your sweater and knit each live stitch together with the corresponding stitch from the cast-on edge in the same column. Make sure not to knit too tightly, so the neckband stretches comfortably over your head. After knitting the first stitch, you will have one stitch on your right needle. Knit the next stitch in the same way. And then cast off one stitch loosely. Repeat this process, knit one leaf stitch with the matching stitch from the cast-on edge and cast off one stitch. Continue until all the stitches are cast off, leaving just one stitch on your needle. Close it off within the yarn tail neatly, and you are done. Now you can try on your sweater one last time before we finish it up. I know it might still look a little scratchy right now, but we are about to transform it into something that looks and feels like real artist sweater. So I decided to make the sweater a bit longer since I have some yarn left over. Why not, right? Plus, it's a great chance to show you how to unravel stitches and get them back on the needle. The sweater hasn't been blocked yet, so the yarn isn't super curly, which makes it much easier to work with. I'm just going to unravel up to the round right above the ribbing and start knitting from there. If you are planning to make adjustments after wet blocking, you will need to relax the yarn by washing it again or using a steam iron to smooth it out. I demonstrate how to do this in the swatch section of this video, so feel free to refer back to that if needed. I unravel the ribbing until I reach the last round, which is easy to spot by its knit one purl one pattern. And then I carefully put all the stitches back on the needle. Once that's done, I place my beginning of round marker and move on to knitting the textured stitch pattern. For this adjustment, I will add 2 rounds of seed stitch, followed by 8 rounds of stockinette stitch, and finish with a ribbing section. Fingers crossed I have enough yarn for it all. So, this is my sweater all finished, but not blocked yet. I held off on wet blocking it because I really wanted to show you how much it transforms after it hits the water. It's like magic, you will see. Alright, let's tackle those yarn tails first. I know they feel never-ending, but put on your favorite movie in the background and I promise it will start to feel like part of the process. If you are curious about my method for weaving yarn tails, I explain it step by step in the Drop and Dream sweater tutorial, which is a basic drop shoulder sweater. I will leave the link for you in the description. But I will slowly show you how I weave in yarn tails at the end of the round to make it as seamless as possible. Once those yarn tails are handled, it's time for the wet blocking. All you need to do is soak the sweater in lukewarm water for about 20 minutes. This lets the textured stitches relax and the whole piece settle beautifully. I've recently started using a Eucalan Delicate wash and I love it because it doesn't have to be rinsed and it's great for wool because it contains lanolin. Okay, if you are using a different detergent, just rinse it out as needed. Then gently squeeze out the water, no wringing, be gentle. Then roll the sweater in a dry towel to absorb the extra moisture. Lay it flat on another dry towel, shaping it back to its original measurements. Let it dry completely. No direct sunlight or heat. I know it's tempting to try it on, but resist. It could stretch out and we don't want that. And that's it, you've officially completed your artist sweater. How amazing is that? Thank you so much for knitting this sweater along with me, and I hope this project nourished your inner artist and brought you joy. Don't say goodbye just yet. Subscribe to my weekly email essay notes, and I will see you there next week.